Hello, and let's talk about US President Donald Trump's forthcoming visit to India on the 24th and 25th of February. I'm Pragya. Right before the visit, four US senators who say they are longtime friends of India have assessed the human rights situation in Kashmir and found it untenable. This happened just a day ago when they wrote to the Secretary of State in the US, Mike Pompeo, expressing their concerns over the human rights situation in Kashmir and also over the Citizenship Amendment Act. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that the US President's visit will be a very special one and that it is very good for India-US friendship. Is it also going to be an endorsement of India's position on Kashmir? As part of this visit, a Kemcho, which means howdy in Gujarat, meeting will be held in Ahmedabad, and a very large gathering of over 1 lakh people will be at the Sardar Patel Stadium. This is what the Indian government seems to be planning for now. There is no doubt that this visit by Trump will be projected 24/7 by the government through the Indian media outlets. Now, Trump's visit has domestic and international implications. Modi and Trump are two people who are very polarizing in their own countries. Both are engaged in excluding or othering one or the other social group, and both blame the so-called elites for all their country's problems. Both are also deeply suspicious of liberal and, of course, the opposition voices. It's also significant that the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, has once again decided to take a foreign leader to Gujarat, though in previous visits, other leaders have been taken to other destinations as well. This visit comes at a time when a major defense deal is in the works between India and the US. But why do we need Trump to visit, and what is the significance of this visit? To discuss this and more, we have human rights activist Gautam Navlakha with us today. Welcome, Gautam.
Thank you, Pragya.
Gautam, just before Trump lands up in India, the US senators don't seem to be too pleased about the situation in Kashmir. Will this make any difference to the fallout of this visit?
Maybe not immediately, but the interesting thing about the senators is that it's a bipartisan group of four, two belonging to Republican Party and two to Democratic Party, right. So which is very significant. And it obviously means that there is amongst a significant section of the American establishment, there are concerns about the way in which things have been moving, both in Kashmir and as well, because the senators have also referred to the Citizenship Amendment Act and how it bars and brings in the angle of which excludes one religious group, the Muslims, from its purview. So that's very significant. I mean, they sought an assessment from Mike Pompeo, the US Secretary of State, on Kashmir situation, where they pointed out that it's had the longest ever internet shutdown in the history of the world, by the way. If Indians want to feel proud about it, let them. But it's a despicable record that we have created for ourselves. They've talked about the detention of people. And they've sought an assessment from the US Secretary of State regarding the condition in Jammu and Kashmir, as well as the fear over rising religious persecution in India. So that's very significant, which means that in the coming years, no matter what happens with Trump's visit, in coming years, in an important section of the US establishment, especially the US Congress and other groups, there is a rising concern about the way in which India is moving and the direction in which India is moving.
Right. Now, the interesting thing about the Trump visit is that Trump himself has policies which somehow India doesn't find a place in. I'm talking about his regional policy. He needs Pakistan in order to sort out the situation in Afghanistan. Pakistan and China are so friendly that a Pakistan minister said it's taller than the mountains, deeper than the ocean, and so on. Where does the Trump visit fall in this condition?
Well, I think both the countries are trying to, it's a kind of trying to flirt with each other. US is quoting India basically as part of their policy of containment of China. And that's where the quadrilateral comes in. That's where the so-called conception of Indo-Pacific comes in. As far as India is concerned, India sees that by offering or dangling the possibility of India getting into a military alliance with the United States,
Right.
we may be able to actually get their support and use it to build India up as a leading power in the world. So we want to ride on the shoulders of the United States to reach the status of leading power, because we find that the conditions are such that if we were to move closer to United States in the name of drawing away from China or as part of its policy of containment of China, then we stand to gain a lot of advantage from United States.
Now, does that mean that Trump's visit will in some way try to endorse the Indian position on Kashmir? Because the senators might disagree, but here we have the president.
But the president himself is very unpredictable. He's the one who's been, in all kind of contexts, has been brought up the issue of Kashmir, and he's offered to mediate. So, I mean, I don't see Donald Trump resiling from expressing his offer of mediating between India and Pakistan, which is what he wants to do elsewhere too. So, I don't think India expects Trump to give up on his efforts to mediate, except they do believe that Trump is our best bet. In having a person like Trump in US, we stand a better chance of drawing closer to United States and getting something concrete out of United States, which otherwise has not come to us in terms of foreign technology, military arsenal, or transfer of military technology, which US has historically never shared with any of its allies. But India believes that it's in a unique position where it can try and negotiate its way in arriving that. So they have also offered to, in order to placate, they're also thinking in terms of buying some additional military items,
right,
like military helicopters for the Navy, Indian Navy, an anti-missile shield, which the US had offered as a counter to the S-400 that we bought from Russia, etc. So this is also, again, given the scale of it, I think many defense analysts believe that these are not, they are not very large in numbers, but they are sufficient to satisfy a president who is always looking for some extra deal and extra, he's called, for good reason, he's called the transactional president. So if you give him something, you may get something in return.
Is this visit going to give him something in America? Maybe the support of influential Indians? Why else would Trump want to go to a Howdy Modi rally? Is something, the Patels are known to be influential in the US. Is the influential section of the Indian population there something that Trump might be?
Pragya, keep in mind that foreign trips in all corners of the world, foreign trips have always been used by leaders to improve the domestic standing. So this is no different for Donald Trump, nor is it different from Modi, because Modi also stands to, wants to take advantage of Trump's visit and the close relationship between United States and India to further consolidate his popularity in India. So all countries do it. How much of an advantage he stands to gain, I mean, Donald Trump in this particular instance, remains to be seen, because India is not a very big player in US domestic politics. Let's keep that in mind. Even in the foreign policy imagination of United States, India is now slowly being given a certain weightage. Otherwise, India doesn't rank very high. US President visiting India in the 4th year of his term itself is indicative of where India figures in US imagination and US strategic thinking.
Right. Now, what happens when Mr. Trump is here with Mr. Modi roaming around in Gujarat? A big rally will be held. There will be 24/7 coverage. Domestically, does this elevate the Prime Minister's image as a friend of yet another foreign leader?
certain. There is always, as I said, all leaders try to derive an extra mileage from either the foreign visit or visit of a foreign dignitaries to showcase the success of their policies. Now, Mr. Modi is known to be to also believe in this
quite a bit.
Absolutely. So he will, and we know that there is a very strong support amongst certain sections of the people, especially the elite, for drawing closer to United States. So in that sense, there will be a massive favorable coverage. Recall what happened when George Bush had visited India in the UPA 1. If you recall that,
right.
You'll realize that despite the fact that George Bush was disliked all over, including in the United States of America, he received massive popular support in India for his visit.
Right. So, Gautam, in the end, will the eye be on Kashmir for the US senators again? Do you think this is going to be a repeat performance? We're going to hear more and more criticism as we go along, or is it just going to be as if this great visit has happened and India is going to gain a lot from it, and we are going to keep trying to bury the Kashmir issue?
Well, even if whether or not US, what impact it has on US is one thing. But let's look at the other side. What impacts it's going to have in India? Indian government has made it very clear that it cares more for international public opinion or international opinion of countries regarding Kashmir than it does about its own people. It cares two hoots for what Indians think about Kashmir, because it's taken for granted that they have their support. Therefore, it excludes and it bans and prohibits entry of Indian politicians, including members of parliament, to visit Kashmir, but it enables foreign envoys to visit.
Right.
So we have the third round of foreign envoys visiting Kashmir on a 2-day junket. Now look at it makes it very clear that this is a image building attempt, because you take them, they arrive at 11 a.m. in the morning at Srinagar on February 12th. They're supposed to travel to Baramulla. They can't because of bad weather, so they go for a shikara ride. Then they're supposed to have met cross section of the people. These are all organized delegates. And in fact, one envoy has been quoted by a reporter in one of the daily newspapers, where he said, in the morning we heard some members who claim to be representing the civil society as claiming that things are very normal and everything is peaceful and hunky-dory. But when we met the journalists, we get a completely different side of the picture. So I'm sure, despite the limits, 2-day visit to 1 day in Kashmir, 1 day in Jammu is not going to give anybody any idea of what the actual situation is.
Right.
This is actually an attempt at muting the criticism primarily that has come from, say, European Union, US Congress and other sections, the media, from members of Organization of Islamic Countries, and this is to neutralize that, blunt that criticism that they have taken the foreign diplomats on a junket. Not much is going to come out because the critical voices still remain. Those concerned questions still remain, no matter what letters the envoys sent. People have access to other news that is flowing out of this country. There is social media access to it. So it's not as if people are completely unaware of the despicable conditions that exist in Jammu and Kashmir.
And that's Kashmir, and there's also news that in Gujarat, when the President Trump's visit will be going on, there will be a sort of scaffolding built to hide the poor where they live. So basically, it just seems as if the propaganda is the message of all these.
And we want to present a sanitized picture which doesn't show the dark underbelly of India, just projects India as this government would like to present it.
Right. Thanks so much, Gautam, for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes, so the Supreme Court has said in a case relating to the state of Uttarakhand that there is no need to measure or count the extent of representation that the scheduled castes have got in public jobs. The court has said this in the context of interpreting Article 16A. The court has decided that it is not compulsory or binding to have reservations in jobs or promotions. Now, we spoke with the chief of the Bhim army, Chandra Shekhar Aazad, who has called for a nationwide strike opposing the verdict on February 23. NewsClick's Ravi Kaushal actually caught up with Chandra Shekhar earlier. Let's take a look at that.
आप लोगों ने जब आप प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस कर रहे थे तो आपने दोनों चीजें कही। आपने कहा कि ये जो है सीए एनआरसी के खिलाफ भी है और साथ के साथ में जो है संविधान बताने की भी बात।
ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के खिलाफ जो हो रहा है उसके खिलाफ ये आंदोलन।
अगर आप समझा पाए कि मतलब इस पूरी दोनों चीजों को आप समझा पाए।
देखिए, सीए एनआरसी जब आया था तभी हम लोग और हमारे सारे साथी कह रहे थे, महमूद भाई भी हमारे साथ हैं, हम यही कह रहे थे कि ये एससी एसटी ओबीसी के अधिकार, बुनियादी अधिकार खत्म करने की और संविधान खत्म करने की लड़ाई चल रही है और यही हुआ। आज तुरंत चोट हो गई सुप्रीम कोर्ट से हमारे अधिकारों पे, और ये भी आर्टिकल 14-15 का उल्लंघन करके कानून बनाया गया। तो ये एंटी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल कानून है एससीए एनआरसी, इसका विरोध हम लोग पूरे देश में दर्ज करा चुके हैं। और अब जो ये फैसला आया है कि आर्टिकल 16(4)A का पूर्ण रूप से उल्लंघन है कि प्रमोशन रिजर्वेशन एससी एसटी को नहीं मिलना चाहिए। तो ये दोनों फैसले एंटी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल है, इसलिए हम लोग इसका विरोध कर रहे हैं।
तो प्लान ऑफ एक्शन क्या है?
प्लान ऑफ एक्शन ये है कि 16 तारीख में मार्च रहेगा मंडी हाउस से पार्लियामेंट तक, और 23 तारीख को हमने भारत बंद बुलाया। और हम सारे एससी एसटी, माइनॉरिटी और ओबीसी के नेताओं से अपील करते हैं कि ये आपके आने वाली पीढ़ियों के अधिकारों का मामला है, आप इसमें समर्थन करें और शांतिपूर्वक बंद बुलाया जाए, शांतिपूर्वक बंद रहे सब उसमें। और ये भी पता लगा कौन सी पार्टी हमारे जो इस बंद का समर्थन नहीं करती, इसका मतलब वो एससी एसटी और ओबीसी के, माइनॉरिटी के जो अधिकार उनके खिलाफ है। तो ये नकाब भी साफ होने वाले हैं बहुत जल्दी।
जो दूसरा मेरा सवाल है वो आपसे, क्योंकि ये फैसला जो है उत्तराखंड सरकार की अपील पे आया था। और उत्तराखंड में जब ये सरकार थी तो वो विजय बहुगुणा की सरकार थी, वो कांग्रेस की सरकार थी। उसके बाद में वो खुद जो है भाजपा में चले गए। अब और आप लोगों ने भी कहा कि भाजपा की पूरी जो है उस तरीके के नीचे है। सवाल ये है आपसे कि भाजपा पे तो ठीक है कि आप उनसे पूछ रहे हैं, सवाल क्या आपको जो है कांग्रेस से भी नहीं पूछा जाना चाहिए?
ये आज तो इनकी सरकार में है, लेकिन आरएसएस के लोग सारी पार्टियों में बैठे हुए हैं। तो जब आरएसएस का व्यक्ति कुर्सी बैठता किसी पार्टी से तो फिर हमारे खिलाफ काम करता, ये हमें दिख गया है। तो जो आरएसएस के लोग जिस पार्टी में बैठे उनके चेहरे बेनकाब हो रहे हैं, ये सब लोग हमारे देश नहीं है।
ये आखिरी सवाल है मेरा, अगर मैं आपसे जान पाऊँ, अभी तक जो है बात हो रही थी कि जो है अभी जो सरकारी सेक्टर में ही जो है रिजर्वेशन की बात हो रही थी, प्राइवेट सेक्टर में रिजर्वेशन की बात आप लोगों ने की, इससे पहले भी
न्यायपालिका में भी की है।
हाँ, तो मतलब अगर मैं ये कहूँ कि और न्यायपालिका की जब आप बात करें तो न्यायपालिका में बहुत दशकों बाद जो है मतलब मैं कहूँ कि एक दलित जज आया है। और कैसे आप मतलब अगर आप समझा पाएंगे क्यों जो है प्राइवेट सेक्टर में जो रिजर्वेशन जो है अब जरूरी हो चला है?
पहले मैं आपको न्यायपालिका में भी समझा दूं और उसको इसमें भी समझा दूं कि जरूरत प्रमोशन रिजर्वेशन क्यों है। सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट में 85 सेक्रेटरी हैं, एक एससी का है, 3 अनुसूचित जनजाति के, ओबीसी का एक भी नहीं है। तो कहाँ रिप्रेजेंटेशन है हमारे? 70 साल में कहाँ पहुंचे हम? आपने बताया एक दलित, अचरज सा लगता है सुनने में, एक दलित आ गया, बाकी सब लोग कौन है? तो जब हमारा व्यक्ति नहीं होगा तो हमारे हितों की बात कैसे होगी? हमारे खिलाफ सब चीजें हो रही है, षड्यंत्र हो रहा है बड़ा। तो हमारे लोगों को आगे बढ़े, इसका बढ़ने का तरीका प्रमोशन रिजर्वेशन मिले एससी एसटी ओबीसी और माइनॉरिटी को भी। ये सब लोग, तभी तो सामाजिक न्याय का जो पूरा ढांचा तभी तो बनेगा जब सबकी बराबरी होगी वहाँ। इसलिए जरूरत है, और सरकारी डिपार्टमेंट खत्म किए जा रहे हैं, सीधा रिजर्वेशन खत्म करने का पूरा बड़ा हमला है बीजेपी गवर्नमेंट का। इसलिए प्राइवेट सेक्टर किया जा रहा है। प्राइवेट सेक्टर में हमारे लोग कौन नौकरी देगा? तो प्राइवेट सेक्टर में भी रिजर्वेशन किया जाए जिससे हमारे लोगों की जिंदगी में सुधार हो। यही तो संविधान की परिकल्पना थी कि सबको बराबर के अधिकार मिले। हजारों साल सताए गए लोग, 70 साल में बदलाव नहीं हुआ उनकी जिंदगी में, और सरकार आंकड़ा दे दे 23% रिजर्वेशन एससी एसटी का, 5.5% लागू हुआ अब तक। क्यों? क्योंकि करना नहीं है सरकारों को। ओबीसी का 27% बैठता, आबादी है 52%, आंकड़े नहीं तो 70% दे रहे हैं, 4.5% लागू हुआ, एससी एसटी से भी कम। और माइनॉरिटी का 19% बैठना चाहिए आबादी के हिसाब से, मिला 1%। जनसंख्या के आधार पे जो मिलना चाहिए वो नहीं मिला है संख्या के आधार पे। और बाकी पहले जाति खत्म करने की बात करें सुप्रीम कोर्ट और सारी सरकारें, फिर रिजर्वेशन खत्म करने की बात करें। जब तक कास्ट जम रहेगा तब तक रिजर्वेशन खत्म नहीं हो सकता।
So it's not just about the letter of the law, but the spirit of the equality enshrined in the Constitution. The courts have also ruled that governments are obliged to ensure substantive equality. That's what Shekhar Aazad just told us. And that's all we have in today's episode of Let's Talk. Catch us live Monday to Friday at 3 p.m. Thank you for watching.